Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy's here. The July Basho is
Whoa,
here.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't steal my thing. Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. Welcome to the New to Sumo podcast.
Let's start the show. New to sumo, here we go.
Welcome everyone to the New to Sumo podcast, and welcome to the New to Sumo podcast, Sumo Spiffy. Welcome to the show, man.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for showing up here. And it's funny that your time in sumo started right as, the last two Yokozuna era really sort of ended because we have a new two Yokozuna era that is just starting. We've got Hoshoryu and our newly minted Yokozuna, Onosato. What did you think of Onosato's performance in the last tournament, and do you think he's going to replicate it for this one?
It is hard to replicate 14 and 1. Like, he absolutely blew everyone out. I can't even think of many fights that even seemed close. Wakataka Kage is still kind of giving him a little bit of trouble. He's just kind of leaning on Waka at the end of the fights and winning that way. But other than that, and obviously Hoshoryu beats his ass sideways, that's who's gonna beat him? Like Oho has shown the capability if everything comes together. So I don't expect him to go 15 and 0 this time. I don't think it would be fair to expect him to go 15 and 0 anytime, but he's always capable of it if he can just get that Hoshoryu win. And who can you say that about besides him? Really nobody. So I guess maybe a better answer to the question is that it depends on if your question is, do you expect him to replicate that level of dominance or simply replicate a Yusho winning performance? Because the first one's gonna be real, real tough. The second one's a lot more plausible.
Fair enough. I mean, that does. I think the answer to the question for now, at least, might be Hoshoryu, because in the last one, he just looked exactly like we wanted a Yokozuna to look like. So he had, sort of his usual loss to someone he probably shouldn't, losing to Abi. He also dropped one to Oho. Kirishima, I mean, always gives literally everyone a headache. So losing to him isn't exactly something to fault him for. But
But do you think that him losing to Abi is a loss he shouldn't take at this point? Because Abi's beaten him 5 times in a row, I think.
man, like Abi is just the master of chaos. I don't even know if I attribute it to like a Hoshoryu thing specifically. I actually wonder if that might be coaching, if he just isn't getting like the coaching to figure out, you know, what to look for when Abi is about to, do, random Abi frog stuff. So, you know, I'm just perplexed. Abi is the perpetual, what's the phrase, the enigma wrapped in a mystery or something like that. You just
Yeah.
you never know what you're going to get from him unless he's going up against Onosato, in which case, like, Onosato, I think the strategy is just grab and push. He's got that on lock.
Yeah. So I just pulled this up. So okay, it's 4 in a row. Abi over Hoshou, 4 in a row and 5 out of the last 6. So the 4 wins he's had were Yori Tayoshi, so pushing, Hikiotoshi, so pull down, Tsukidashi, pushing, Hikiotoshi, pull down. So Abi just doing Abi things. He pushes and he pushes and he pushes, and then sometimes he just yanks on your head and pulls you into the dirt. And I don't think it's coaching. I don't think it's anything other than Hoshoryu just lost his timing on Abi. Because before this, he's 11 and 8 on Abi overall, but he's lost 6 of the last 8. So before that, he was 9 and 2 against the guy. And he's gotten better. Hoshoryu has gotten better in that time frame. So what happened? It's just he lost his groove, or Abi found his groove. Call it, you can be negative or positive about it. But I don't think it's anything more than that. I think the next time Hoshoryu beats Abi, yeah, maybe not the next time, but if he gets 2 in a row, then you're going to see the whole head-to-head swing. Then it's going to be like, okay, boy, I got you now. But when's
All
that
right.
going to happen? He needs to figure it out if he's gonna keep up with Onosato in these Yusho races.
Well, so
Yeah.
speaking of the Yusho race, and by the way, hi everybody. I haven't said a word yet in this episode, but I'm here too. We've also had a comment on our channel asking if there are actually two hosts of the New to Sumo podcast because our voices sound so similar. So there are two of us. I'm here too. I just haven't said anything yet. So I just wanted to ask you because we were kind of going back and forth about Hoshoryu and Onosato. Um, I'm sure in all of the thumbnails and title and everything for this video, we're painting it like it's Onosato versus Hoshoryu for this tournament. Do you feel like that's an accurate representation of who the most likely candidates are, or is there someone that really should be in that mix beyond just Hosh and Onosato? It's very compelling right now, as we mentioned, to have the two Yokozunas finally facing off against each other for the first time in years. But is there someone that we are missing maybe from this picture? Obviously, there's always room for other competitors to be in that hunt, but anyone that is like right up there with the two Yokozuna right now?
No, no, and there shouldn't be because these guys are healthy. Apparently, Hoshoryu's toe injury isn't that bad, I guess. And Onosato is pretty healthy. The thing that knocks down Yokozuna is just physical state. Other than that, I mean, a fully healthy Hakuoho probably goes 15-0 7 times in a row, right?
Mhm.
But when you look at everybody else, the way I look at it, the best description I have is that think of these guys as like a collection of stats, right? Let's go with like let's say they each have five things and you can go 1 to 20 in all those. So then you have 100 stat points, a nice round number. Onosato's got like 95 stat points total, right? Or you can do an overall thing like in Madden. Onosato's got like 95 points. Hoshoryu's got like 88 or 89. So he's got just enough to be trouble for Onosato. But then everybody else is in the low to mid 80s at best. So they can put up a fight against Hoshoryu, but they're too far behind Onosato to actually consistently give him trouble. So if Onosato is a clear favorite against every single person in the sport except Hoshoryu, and Hoshoryu gives up losses that he really shouldn't as a Yokozuna, quote unquote, um, that Onosato doesn't, then it really comes down to just either which one of them ends up in the lead at the end, or do somehow both of them slip enough to let somebody else in? But that's kind of the key thing relative to your question. Do I hold anybody up with them? No, because they have to let other people into the Yusho race. Nobody else is going to force themselves in on any kind of consistent basis in any way that you could expect.
So there's kind of two things that we believe could be the reason for someone else to have a chance in this Basho. And my brother pointed this out, I think, in one of our recent episodes, that Onosato has a tendency when he gets promoted to a new rank to for his record to go down slightly. It is such a it's a silly stat, but it's just one of those things. Like if you're superstitious about sports, it could happen. Obviously, he's perfectly healthy to our knowledge, Onosato, so there shouldn't be any reason for his performances to dip. He's facing the same wrestlers, obviously, but that was one reason to maybe doubt Onosato because it has come true every time. And then the other reason, of course, with Hoshoryu is that he's had some trouble in recent tournaments, and also with the toe injury being a possibility. So, assuming that those two things both come true again, that the toe injury causes Hoshoryu to lose some more matches, and Onosato has his superstitious dip, who do you think would be the most likely to win the Basho if it wasn't one of them?
See, this is where new guy syndrome comes into play because the guy who's gonna be able to keep up with them the best
Uh,
just in
uh,
terms
uh.
of
I
what
know exactly who you're gonna say. I know exactly
yeah.
who you're going to
Oh,
say.
everybody should at this
All
point.
all three of us need to say it at the same time. No,
All right.
not that one.
Yeah.
No, no, further down,
I
further
know,
down.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, on
Yeah.
three. One, two, three.
Kusano.
Kusano.
Kusano,
Yep.
obviously. But he's not gonna beat him at the end. This is not a
Yep.
Takerufuji situation. He's gonna get beat more. He's not gonna go 13-2. I think he'll go 10-5, 11-4, something like that. Depends on his schedule. But the guys up top are gonna take it to him in a way that they didn't to Takerufuji. Takerufuji was like an all new kind of beast mode. Kusano was very similar to him, but now they've seen that. So that he might keep up, And the thing is, he might play spoiler to other guys like Wakataka Kage or a healthy Kirishima or, well, I don't want to say Takerufuji because we've already seen what happens when he gets into the Sanyaku. But
Not to
yeah, if you
mention they're in
just
the
look at,
same stable, so they wouldn't fight unless it's a playoff.
right, I mean, in
Sorry, I didn't mean
yeah,
to
that's
cut you off
true.
there.
I was not thinking in terms of them fighting each other directly, but like,
Mm.
but both being up there, man, now I totally lost where I was going with that. It doesn't really matter because they're not going to be in it at the end. Um, Waka needs to pop again. If we want to see somebody else actually manage this, Waka needs to pop again because like the guys who we know can hang if they're outside of the joy, so like Abi, Takayasu, even Takano Sho, if they don't have to fight the whole Sanyaku leading up to the end, we know that they can put together a Yusho run. But who else can really do that? Right now, outside the joy, it's only Kusano, maybe. In terms of in the joy, who actually can hold up, because Koto Zakura is just a physical mess at this point. He's lucky to just keep hitting winning records. Daisho just gets beat down by too many people too consistently. And Kirishima, like I said, if his health holds up, maybe. But even then, he never beat Takerufuji, and Onosato gives him the same kind of problems. He's too big, too strong. Kirishima, I maintain, best wrestler skill wise in the sport, even better than Hoshoryu. But he cannot handle the most physical guys, not consistently, especially not when they're Onosato sized. So he's going to probably fall short in that respect. Waka, if everything comes together, maybe he can do it.
That answers our question as far as what's the status of, most of the lower Sanyaku. Could you give us sort of your scouting report on Oshoma, our brand new Komusubi?
He's No, you know what? I don't think it's as hopeless as I originally expected it to be. Because once I went through all the matchups, he's actually not that bad against the Joy Maegashira guys. So, Maegashira 1 through 4, his head-to-heads are not that bad. They're not too shabby. He's going to get dumpstered by the Sanyaku. He's going to get absolutely smoked by just about everybody. If he gets 2 wins in those 7 matches, I'll be kind of surprised. That would be a good outcome for him. So I'm thinking 6-9, maybe 7-8. The thing with him is, I don't know if you guys remember the last 2 matches, and I've mentioned this in a couple videos, but those last 2 matches in May, when it was really clear that if he could beat Waka and then Abi, that he could get a Sanyaku spot, as unbelievable as that was from his position. I've never seen this dude fight so hard. I've never seen him fight so hard. Like that last match between him and Abi was unbelievable. And I mean, is he going to go that hard for 15 days? I don't know if he can, but he's going to have to if he wants any chance at this. So he's not a bad wrestler. Like he's actually pretty decent, but he's pretty decent in the way someone like Kinbozan is pretty decent. It's not designed to hang at the top.
Yeah, we've definitely made this point before that there are just certain people who are exactly where they belong, and aren't just perpetually rising. Like there are certain wrestlers who you see them as just having infinite ceilings in a way. Have said that for a while about Takerufuji, and so far, recently we've been a little bit expecting a little bit more. People believe that Hakuoho is capable of almost anything, and obviously not too long ago,
Mm.
Onosato we were saying it about. Oh, you're skeptical on Hakuoho. We'll have to come back to that in a second.
Okay.
But just to land on this point, I feel like Oshoma is someone who really doesn't belong much higher than where he is now. I mean, I think he really had to pull it together at the end of the last tournament to get to Komusubi, and I kind of feel the same way about a lot of the guys that are in and around the bottom of the Sanyaku, that they're not future Ozeki necessarily. They are belonging and deserving Sanyaku members and Hide Magashira. Now, about Hakuoho, let's get
Yeah.
to it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the guy we're
No, you
actually
know
all
what?
excited for.
You said like you were talking about that, people are, high on Hakuoho. Are you, either of you?
I think that it's interesting. Before we started recording the episode, we were talking about our Kachi Clash picks, and we can talk about that some more later. But basically, we have to pick somebody from the M1 through M6 ranks to have the best
One
record
to
in the next
five.
tournament. 1 to 5, that's right. Thank you. And we were really struggling. It's always the hardest pick to make because the schedules that these 10 wrestlers get are so brutal. They're facing off against the entire Sanyaku. And even though Anishiki had an incredible tournament last time, he has no experience and no good experience against the Sanyaku. He's never fought against the top guys, and his record is poor against the other guys up there. So it's really hard to believe that he's just going to suddenly turn it on and get 10 wins when that's who he's facing every single match. So we felt like Hakuoho has some history against those guys, and even at the M4 position, he might have a chance of pulling together, say, 8, 9 wins. But whether or not he's a Yusho contender, I'm skeptical of that at least.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think he's. Yeah, I mean, when he just went 8-7 last time and got absolutely mollywopped by the whole Sanyaku, basically, it's hard to see him as a Yusho contender. I think a lot of the positivity towards him comes from that initial killer run that he had when he first got the division, when he first got to the division before he had surgery.
Sure.
And that kind of surgery takes a while to come back from. Now he's getting to the point where he should be more or less recovered from that. I said, I've said in the past, you got to give him like 2 years, and we're getting close to that, but we're not quite there yet. But you look at how he did last Basho, and he looked like exactly who we want him to be, who we were hoping he would be once he had that initial pop off against everybody that is in the mid ranks. And once it went up, everything fell apart. And that's kind of important because why did it fall apart? One, he's super strong. He's unbelievably strong. But those top guys are the ones who can grapple and match him in strength. There's not many people who can do that, but they can now combine their level of experience because he's still kind of he's not one note per se, but you look at a guy like Onishiki who shows a pretty remarkable skill set for his newness to the sport. And Hakuoho does not, he might have those skills somewhere in his bag of tricks, but he doesn't use them. He tends to use kind of the same things again and again. He used to try a lot of kicks before he had surgery. Now I never see him do that anymore. For consistency, that's probably a good thing, but he's not using quite as many techniques as he used to. So now you've got Hakuoho. He's going to have to fight Tamawashi, which Tamawashi is a little slower. He might be able to get around that. If Takayasu feels like pushing, that's going to be tough. Onosato, obviously. Abi, obviously. Daisho, obviously. There's way too many guys who love to just punch you in the mouth, metaphorically, slightly literally, in those top ranks. That's where I think Hakuoho and Anishiki are going to run into problems. If they figure out what to do about that, the sky's the limit, but they got to prove they can first.
And this kind of ties back to that point about, a lot of these wrestlers and their trajectories, because to say that Hakuoho might have the best record among the 10 wrestlers in the M1 through M5 ranks isn't to say that he's likely to get a 12 win tournament,
Right.
or become a Sekiwake and then be, getting Ozeki promotion. That is really hard to do. It's so hard to do, in fact, that we currently only have one Ozeki left, and he was just Kadoban not long ago. So, and I guess that's a kind of a separate point just about the lack of Ozeki and the humongous gap between our two Yokozuna and then to our Ozeki and then to our Sekiwake and then the rest of the field. Just crazy the disparity between the level of performance that we've got there. Which is kind of the opposite of what we felt like we were seeing maybe a year ago, where it felt like there was a lot of parity in the division. Um,
I got kind of, I wonder if it only appears that way because Onosato has emerged as like the dominator that a healthy Takerufuji was for the past 2 or 3 years. Like, whenever Takerufuji was healthy enough for 15 days, like he would be the alpha dog, and Onosato maybe just makes it look so easy that the parody that we saw about a year ago when he was first, sort of getting his feet wet is starting to sort of disappear. That's what I wonder, if maybe that's the sort of thing that's going on right now.
Well,
So, well, let me ask you this though. Are you talking about parity across the sport, or are you talking about, I mean, I guess if you're including Onosato, that would be across the sport necessarily. But what do you think the state of the sport is in terms of parity if we take out the Yokozuna?
If we take out the two Yokozuna and like, if like both of them were, what's the word? Darn it, I've been following the sport for 2 words. Why can't I?
Kyujo. Kyujo.
Yes, if both of them were Kyujo for this tournament, like I I don't know if I would be shocked if we had like a four-way 11-4 playoff. That's how like evenly matched some of, these even like the top guys remaining seem to be. Like it really doesn't seem like there's somebody that is predictably going to win, even like 11 on a regular basis anymore. Like and Hoshoryu, honestly, up until his November January spell, he wasn't even that kind of wrestler. Like he was more of a 9 to 10 win guy. There really isn't anybody here that, when they're fully healthy, you can say, oh yeah, we can just, chalk up 11 wins for them. And that's what I think has kind of allowed Onosato to rise up the Banzuke in record time.
Interesting. So here's my take on that. When Takerufuji was in and out and in and out, we also had a lot of rotation through the entire lower Sanyaku.
Mhm.
We don't have that right now. Daisho, Kiri, and now Wakatake Kage are all pretty set. Kirishima, it depends on his health, but when he's on, he's there. He's locked in. He's not going anywhere. Daisho's been a Sekiwake. I don't have it in front of me, but it's for a lot of tournaments in a row now. You can't get rid of him. He's not good enough to make Ozeki. He's not got enough wins in there to make Ozeki, but he's not going anywhere until he starts to fade. And now Wakatake Kage is healthy. I don't suspect he's going to be easy to get out of Sekiwake either. So, in that respect, I think the parity actually has decreased somewhat even outside of those two guys, the two Yokozuna. If they were out of the competition, I would expect one of the Sekiwake to go at least 11 wins. Actually, I'd probably expect two of them to go 11 wins and one more than that and definitely be a favorite. What's curious is there's like you I feel a little bad for Koto Sakura that his body is betraying him so that he's kind of an afterthought in all of this. But it's like there's this crazy parity amongst the three Sekiwake. Like, how do you pick one of them over the other? But I would pick any of them over anyone else below them,
Mm.
and I would do it easily. So that's kind of a weird three-tiered system that hadn't existed until the last 6 months or so. So below them, I think there's a lot of parity. That may change with these new hotshots coming up. We have yet to see. But yeah, I think we may start to see more striation in the ranks.
Well, if one of our upper Sanyaku don't win this Yusho, then chances are you will be proven correct. Because I probably would say that like either a healthy Kirishima or a healthy Wakataka Kage would probably have the best odds of anybody on the rest of the Banzuke except maybe Kusano just because of the the whole not sure what he's like aspect to it. I think we might as well move to the rest of the non-joy Banzuke. We do have Takerufuji, who I think we've kind of figured out his deal now. I think we kind of figured out that the injuries that he sustained through the year are probably going to result in him being, maybe hard stuck in like the middle of Maegashira until he's completely healed from whatever his most recent thing is. Um, how do you feel about Takerufuji? Have we sort of seen like Like, are we going to look back on him and say that his debut was sort of his peak, or is there still room for him to like become, maybe even a high Sanyaku?
We are probably going to look at that debut Yusho as his peak,
Mm,
but I think it's really because of the injuries, and that's unfortunate.
right.
Um, I feel bad for him. I really do because he's fun to watch. And when you see him against somebody who is not on his level, the dominance is just out of control. He just runs through people in a way that nobody else outside of the Sanyaku does. He's very unique in that respect. It's it's the question of why does he do so well against these mid-rank guys and then so badly when he goes up a little bit more. And this is another reason why I think that parity is a little bit less in play now, because I mean he is actual evidence of that. He goes up against the Sanyaku and gets smoked. He went what was 0 and 7 in May against the Sanyaku, which is unbelievable. Somebody of his caliber should not go 0 and 7. 2 and 5, sure, he's not as good as them. They know what to do against him. 0 and 7 is crazy. And then he went 6 and 2 against everybody else. Like to have that kind of a disparity between that top level of guys and the ones who are just below them, who are supposed to be almost as good, is nuts. So here's the question then. Is he actually that dominant against everybody else and just needs a little bit of tweaking to compete against at least the lower Sanyaku, if not the Yokozuna? Or is he, I don't even know what the rationale for this would be. Um, is he going to get figured out by more people further down the division who also have the physical capability to beat him, which is a big part of the problem for those guys? That I don't know. I hope he can recover enough and figure out methods, techniques, whatever it's going to take to compete against the guys further up. I'm not going to hope for high Sanyaku for him. I'm going to hope for the Sanyaku. I'm going to hope he can get there at some point, even if it's just Komusubi to see what happens. But like the more people that can make noise, the better off the sport is and the more fun it is.
Fair enough. Not a whole lot of like storylines going on as far as Maegashira 6 through 9 goes. A lot of guys that have sort of ebbed and flowed, Gonoyama, Tobizaru, Endo, Sadanumi, Ichiyamamoto, Chiyoshoma. Those are all guys that,
Ura is
they
always a story, damn it.
well, hey, darn it, you cut me off. All right, you know what? It's time. Roll the intro.
So this is something, Spiffy, I don't know if you were aware of this before you joined the show, but we dedicate a full hour every episode to just talking about Ura. So I hope you made time in your schedule because we're now going to get into it.
Dude, I'm here. Let's go.
All right.
All right. First question, most important question. How many 15 and O's is he going to have this year? And why is it more or less than 3.5?
No, he's not going to have any because he's too nice to do that to everybody else.
Mm,
Very wise, very wise.
very wise.
His entire style is based around making it interesting. If he won all the time, it wouldn't be that interesting. But he loses enough so that it's like, oh, how is he going to win or how is he going to lose? He actually increases the possibilities of what can happen in any match. That's why he's the best.
One thing I find amazing about Ura is I truly don't remember him ever having a winning record. I actually had to go back and see when was the last time he had a winning record in a tournament.
No, it's
It was
crazy. Since we started following Sumo 2 years ago, he has had 3 winning records, but he has not had more than 9 wins in a Basho in nearly 4 years.
And yet he is always, always in the top 10 Maegashira ranks or higher. Like it's remarkable his ability to just not lose too much. That's a really like powerful skill. He doesn't go 3 and 12 in tournaments. He will consistently go 6 and 9 or 7 and 8. But he knows how to lose just the right amount to just keep himself in and around it, and I find that really special too.
I
He's
think when he
yeah.
retires, the Maegashira 4W 4 West rank should simply be renamed the Ura rank because he owns, Maegashira 4 West the way Tiger Woods owns, the Masters when he wears red.
Like everybody wants to argue about who's number one, who's number two, who's in the top 10. But if you want to know who the number 16 professional sumo wrestler is, it's Ura. He's proven it time and time and time again. And there's just no question anymore. That's who he is. That's where he lands. Like, just accept it. That's where he's going to end up next time.
We've also got we've got the other two guys who I have absolutely no idea what their deal is. We've got Atamifuji who was like he was one win away from getting to Komasubi, I think, and then it's just been all downhill since. I think he just took advantage of that September November period where like everybody was either injured or just, wrestling poorly, and he just isn't that guy. Like maybe this is, right where he belongs. Him and possibly Roga.
Tommy Fuji, he had his Juryo Yusho, and then his Yusho in his tournament when he came up in 2023, and he lost against Takakeisho with the Henka, right? And then he had another Jun Yusho with an 11-4 record where he choked on the final days. Since then, his highest records have been 8-7, and he's consistently gotten 8-7, 7-8, and sometimes even less than that. And it just feels like since that period where he was on fire after coming up at the end of 2023, he just hasn't been that guy.
It almost seems to be like a recurring theme with some of the Isagahama stable guys. For those of you not too familiar, Isagahama is the sumo stable that's home to Takerufuji, Atamifuji, former Yokozuna Fuji, as well as a bunch of other guys with the Fuji suffix, such as Midori Fuji and Takara Fuji. Um, like Atamifuji seemed to, reach his ceiling and then he's crashed. Takerufuji seemed to have reached his ceiling and now, he's either crashed or he's crashing. We'll probably find out in a couple of days. I think, this might be Kusano's time, when we'll get to him in a moment. But Atamifuji might be going through that time right now where he's sort of trying, we're all sort of trying to figure out where he really belongs in the pecking order on like a regular basis.
Spiffy, where do you see Atamifuji kind of landing as sort of his rightful place on the Banzake?
Pretty much this.
Yeah, M10.
Like he's got Sanyaku skills. I know that he's been kind of shit talked by some of the people at Izagahama as not being coachable. And that's really unfortunate because he's past the point in his career he shouldn't be, but he is, where he could really make the improvements necessary to get to that level. Can he still get better? Yeah, of course. But when you've got a degenerative hip at 22 or whatever age he is, like that's not getting better. I have a lot more hope for Takerufuji being able to keep climbing the ranks just because his injuries are more acute. They have a much better chance of healing. Atami's, it's really not possible. The way that you alleviate the pressure of arthritis is losing weight, and that's not really an option for him as far as being competitive. So, like, what is he going to do to get better? It's not impossible. Like, he's used so little of his potential in terms of skill that I think it's possible, theoretically, that he gets better faster than his hip breaks down and he makes another climb, but he's got to become more coachable. He's got to basically be more willing to learn because that has been a clear problem. Regardless of what actually goes on in the stable, regardless of how quote unquote coachable he is, you don't necessarily have to be super coachable to learn. Some people, they don't want to listen to others, but they still figure things out. And he is kind of a dumbass. Like he just doesn't figure out new ways to do things. He tries to do his sumo and it ain't working now. As soon as he hit the Sanyaku or near the Sanyaku, it stopped working as well. He couldn't quite get over the hump, like you guys were saying. and now he's got a deteriorating body, and he hasn't really shown a willingness or an ability to do more than what he ever did in the past. So unless that changes, there's really no reason to think he's ever going to escape like above Maegashira 7 or so, part outside of a lucky Banzuke run.
Yep, I tend to agree. It seemed for a while like he was on the cusp of Sanyaku, and then since then it's just gotten worse and worse. And it seems like the league is figuring him out. The league,
The league. No, no,
the
he's not fighting for Hakuoho yet.
That's right. That's right. Well, maybe someday. And so, are there any other people that we should spend a little bit more time on? Probably Kusano. I think is going to need some serious attention as we go through this
Yeah,
Banzuke.
yeah, I sort of heard, except for Kusano in my head when you asked that question, because like, well, all right, do you mean everyone else until we get to the inevitable? Uh,
Exactly. So, what are your thoughts?
but
What do you feel is Kusano's true ceiling, and especially how do you think he's going to do this tournament when notoriously guys who come up who are very, very promising often go absolutely on a rampage in their first time up in the Makuuchi division?
so they often go on a rampage because the bottom of the division is just a rotation of Jurio lifers and guys who are trying to climb, who just yo-yo in and out of Makuuchi. So the competition level is not that much different, at least for the first half of the Basho. After that, it kind of depends on who he's getting. But like, and I've paid way too much attention to how these guys get scheduled. He's 14E, so he's the eighth from the bottom. So he should get paired up against everyone all the way to the bottom, just because they have to, fight guys up the ranks. Maybe he'll skip one of them. Hard to say who it would be, probably Kotoeho or Shishi. But the fact that he doesn't have to fight Midorifuji or Atamifuji limits the options. So that makes it more likely he fights all those guys going down. So like you just look at who he is going to fight going down, not even up. We already know like Shodai, Churna, Umi, they're going to be there. Fuji no Kawa is going to try his best and he's going to get picked up and thrown into row 12. Kota Shoho might give him a problem. Kota Shoho might genuinely give him a problem because he's good, he's strong, he's sneaky. If his body is misbehaving in any way, he's screwed. But if it's not hopeless. Hidena Umi is probably just happy for the bigger paycheck. Kaio is gonna run, but Kusano is athletic enough to keep up with him. I don't know if you remember when Onosato was first coming up through Juryo, but his kryptonite was dudes who could get away from him. Thomas Shoho made him look absolutely silly at least once that I can remember, just backing up until he fell on his face. Kusano seems to have learned from that and really does not let that happen. Mitaki Yumi, he's going to blow through. Kotoeho, probably too small. Like Kotoeho is going to be dangerous to a lot of people, but not him. And then Shishi is going to work and twerk and do everything he can and then fall on his face. So if Kusano goes worse than 6-1 against those guys, I'm going to be amazed. Then Shodai is strong enough. So I guess that depends what mood he's in. Churina Umi, I mean, Churina Umi is good against certain guys, certain types of guys, and Kusano ain't it. And then if he ends up with Asakoryu and Midorifuji, again, they're very good and they'll push. They're the kind of guys who could be surprising trouble. Because Kusano, I'm telling you, his real kryptonite now is the same thing as Takerufuji's, which is somebody who will get their face in his chest and shove him backwards. He is not great when that happens because he hasn't really had to deal with it that much yet. So who's going to do that? Midori Fuji's not. Now, Midori Fuji could Katasukashi him for sure. Asakoryu, though, and Toki Hayate, they're definitely not favorites, but they're dangerous. But if he gets through them, he's 9-1 and he's fighting the Sanyaku the rest of the way.
And so at that point, what do you think? He ends 9-6, 10 and
10 and
5.
10 and 5. Uh, so if you look at Anishiki, because he flubbed the first 2 days of his first Basho, Like he was obviously having nerves. And then he lost to Ryuden. So now he's 2-3, and it's like, what's going on? And then he went on the run everybody expected. But because it took him a while, it took him until day 11 to reach 8 wins. And only then did they schedule him against anyone in the Sanyaku. And then he got Daisho and then Takerufuji, who was about the same record, and Oho. Basically, by the time he got against Sanyaku guys, he wasn't in the Yusho race anymore. It's way worse if you're in the Yusho race early because you're probably going to technically stay in the Yusho race for a while. And then you're just going to keep eating just punches to the mouth from the guys up top. So for Kusano, a lot is going to depend on kind of how the Yokozuna do. Because I don't think we're expecting anybody to go 12-0, 13-0, 12-1, except one of those two guys. But if somebody is popping off like that, and he takes a couple losses to the Sanyaku, he's going to fall out of the Yusho race faster. And the faster he gets out of the Yusho race, the faster he gets more normal scheduling. And then the more wins he can rack up.
So it actually might almost benefit him to maybe start like, 2-2, let's say, or like, yeah, like 2-3, and then he just like steamrolls his final 10 days and could very well be like, at like 11-2 or like 11-3 on, heading into the final day and, possibly in it for like a playoff or just like a runner-up finish.
I wouldn't say it would benefit him because wins are wins. Get the wins early and you've got the wins on the board.
Mm.
But what can happen is if you're absolutely rampaging at the bottom and you're in the lead, or you're in the lead compared to all the other Maegashira guys, then you get pulled up faster and you stay there for longer. Whereas a little bit of a slower start would mean somebody else might be able to, like, let's say he gets to 8-3. Well, somebody else above him is also 8-3. And then that person gets that matchup first because he's low ranked. That could work in his favor, but that's kind of hoping that other people take the heat, or that the guys like Onosato is going 13-0 and knocking you out of the Yusho race early. And that stuff's all out of his control. He's just better off winning. I'm just referring to the things that can affect his schedule and thus his final outcome. 9-6 would be a little surprising. I think he would have to get absolutely shafted on the schedule for that to happen. I think 10-5 is safe, and I think 11-4 is probable as long as his schedule isn't too bad.
Fair enough. Shall we do our Kachi Clash picks before we call it a day?
Sure, Kachi Clash, woo, intro music.
Note to self, we need to make some intro music for Kachi Clash picks.
Absolutely. So, obviously, for those who aren't playing, get on Kachi Clash. Give us your username down below or send us an email so we can add you to the new to Sumo stable or heya on Kachi Clash. And without further ado, we'll go through the ranks. So, in the top rank, we have our two Yokozuna. Our two Yokozuna. That
Two
sentence.
Yokozuna. That's not
Yes.
one,
Are,
but
are there
two Yokozuna.
are there two Yokozuna?
There are
Do we have
two
Yokozuna?
There are
Yokozuna.
Okay.
Wait, two more than not one, not three. How many? Okay, I'm sorry. This joke is played out.
Yes.
Let's just
No,
go.
no. But here's the question. Do we have to pick between them?
Yes, you do actually. You have to pick one of the two Yokozuna or Ozeki, and there are many Ozeki to choose from, of course. You have of your Ozeki, Kotozakura, and Onosato. And then from your Yokozuna, you have Hoshoryu and Onosato.
That's a
So,
deep cut that not everybody's going to get.
yeah, I should probably explain that. So, technically, on the Banzake, you're not allowed to be without two Ozeki. So, Onosato, because he was just promoted from the Ozeki position, is actually serving as a, correct me if I'm getting this wrong, a Yokozuna Ozeki. Is
Yeah.
that right? That's the official term. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's technically both, even though he'll be wearing the white ropes and everything, and doing all the Yokozuna stuff. So of these three, I think we got a sense maybe, Spiffy, of where you're leaning as far as who's most likely. You're going obviously with Kotozakura.
Well, I'm going with Kotozakura in the sense that I'm giving thoughts and prayers to everyone who's picking Kotozakura.
Okay, understood. So obviously, you know what we can do? We'll all make our pick on three. This is what we've done in the past. All
All
right.
right.
Isn't this what you do when we're all going to say the same thing?
True. I don't think we're going to this time, but we'll try it anyway.
Okay.
One, two, three. Hoshoryu.
Onosato.
Onosato. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So that
so
didn't
who
work.
said Onosato and who got it wrong?
So I said Onosato.
and I got it right.
Oh, interesting. So tell us why you're so confident with Hoshoryu.
I think that, despite what I've been hearing about the toe injury, that he did well enough the last time. He has been putting in, it sounds like he has been putting in some great training sessions. And I just don't think that he's been as distracted as Onosato has been. I think a lot of people really underestimate the distraction that getting a big promotion in sumo can be for you. Like just look at what it did to Hoshoryu. As soon as he got boosted from, Sekiwake to Ozeki, he instantly goes down to, from like double digits consecutively to just 8 wins. It was kind of the same when Onosato first became an Ozeki. I think he only had 9 after he had just been crushing folks left and right. I just feel that Onosato might be a little too distracted to be on his very best, and Hoshoryu will take advantage, not just when we finally get our head-to-head meeting, but just throughout the tournament. I think that he has potentially learned from his mistakes as well, and could very well be like about a 12-2 or so heading into the final day, maybe even 13-1 if we're lucky enough as sumo fans.
I made a remark in one video, like the one after May, about Hoshoryu trying to do more with his career than live in Onosato's shadow. There's a reason why I said anything along those lines, and it's not because Hoshoryu is bad. It's because Hoshoryu can only beat Onosato once in a basho outside of a playoff.
Mm.
Onosato gets to fight 14 other guys. And any 14 other guys you pick, he's going to be better against them on average than Hoshoryu is. Hoshoryu is going to be great against them. Onosato is going to be better. So Hoshoryu has to not just be able to definitely beat Onosato on that last day, but he's got to stay within a win of Onosato all the way through just to earn himself a playoff. And eventually Onosato is going to figure out how to beat him again. So it's like, I play the numbers on this. Like occasionally I do vibe stuff, but I'm playing the numbers here. Onosato is clearly the favorite.
That makes sense. I'm glad you put it that way because we've seen this point made many times, and this is the thing that gets cited so often is that well Hoshoryu has the better head-to-head record. Um, Unfortunately for the people that feel that that's extremely relevant, it doesn't win you a Yusho just to have a better head-to-head record against somebody. You have to have the best record in the entire Makuuchi division. That's something Onosato has proven he's much more capable of doing. He averages 11 wins a tournament. Hoshoryu averages about 9.
Fair enough. I'm still, gonna vibe with Hoshoryu at least until Saturday. Then I reserve the right to to make a last minute change.
Yeah, and obviously, like there's strategy to Kachi Clash that goes beyond who's the better wrestler sometimes. Like, for example, wanting your picks to be a little different than other people's so that you can maybe win a tiebreaker, for example. So, that's actually part of why I made certain picks that I did, not necessarily because I thought they are the most likely to have the best record of their group.
Actually, I'm glad you said that, but we can talk about that when we get to 1 through 5.
Sure. Yeah, well, let's do it. So first, let's do our Sekiwake and Komusubi picks on three. One,
One,
two,
two, three. Wakataka
Kirishima.
Kage. I mean, for me, Wakataka Kage, like he's healthy, he's motivated. I think that he honestly, I think, outside of the upper Sanyaku, he's the most talented guy other than Kirishima himself. And I'm just not ready to trust Kirishima again. He's broken my heart too many times. I think that, in terms of sheer talent, Waka Takakage is just the guy for this. Not to steal from Better Call Saul.
I think the last 6 months, like and basically in 2025, we've started to see why Curie was considered a Yokozuna hopeful. And let's not forget, he was basically 2 wins short of making Yokozuna like a year and a half ago. He was a lot closer than anyone remembers him getting.
Yeah.
But I don't trust his body. I don't trust his health. And that's what it comes down to. I had somebody on my channel ask if or suggest that Waka should be better than like a 9 win expectation because he's got Ozeki on the line, but like Waka is not like I know I said Oshoma really went after it those last couple days, and maybe now somehow he finds a way to do it all 15 days. Waka is not that guy. Waka comes at you every day. There's not a whole lot of extra effort to pull out of him. So, like, where is this extra going to come from? Like, motivation is great and everything, but you still got to be good enough to win 12 out of 15 matches. And there's just too many guys who are too capable of knocking him down to really feel like just the motivation is going to get him there. But I have him as a safer pick. Kiri could beat him. Like him and Daisho are both safe, but he's safe with a higher ceiling.
Mhm.
And Kiri can outdo him, but Kiri is not as trustworthy physically. So I want Waka.
That is honestly a way better way to say pretty much exactly what I was thinking. And as far as Kirishima goes, like it really sucks to think about how close he was, like, just being 2 wins short, because we honestly might be only like a year or two away from looking back on Kirishima as the first Mongolian Ozeki who did not make Yokozuna, which is both wild and also sad to think about. That being sort of his potential legacy. So I hope he's at least able to, get back to Ozeki, before his body really starts to break down. Because he's at like around the age where Takakeisho started falling apart, which is a little bit scary to think about.
Yeah, but for very different reasons.
Yeah.
So, like Takakeisho ended up with very chronic problems. Kiri, we don't know about it yet. Like he had a lot of issues happen all at once. Are they going to end up chronic or can he really come back fully from them? I don't think he's there yet, but he could. It's possible. I just I think we got to give him a little more time.
Well, let's move on. I mean, I think we've said all that needs to be said about the Komusubi. You basically used,
Which is nothing.
a 4-letter word for Oshoma, and like we've spoken extensively about how, Takayasu just, like, yeah, he can turn it on every now and then, but when he has to turn it on against, the Sanyaku, he just doesn't have it to sustain it. Maybe he'll upset Hoshoryu, day one, but other than that, I don't see him getting a whole lot of wins up here. So let's just move on. So we've got Maegashira 1 through 5. Just to recap for the audience, we've got Maegashira 1, Onishiki and Wakamoto Haru. We've then got Oho and Abi, Onokatsu Kinbozan, Hakuoho and Tamawashi. Finally, Hirada Umi and Meisei. So let's all give our picks on 3. 1, 2, 3. Hakuo.
Hakuoho.
Nishiki.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
very fair. I had Onishiki for a while, and then I just got scared because of his lack of experience against the top guys. What gave you some confidence with him?
Um, Nothing. I think he is very simply the one who can do the most that I'm not expecting him to do. And my dark horse is Meisei, purely because of his rank. Aonishiki, I'm thinking Aonishiki like 7 and 8. And I'm thinking a lot of these guys, 7 and 8, 6 and 9, somewhere in that range. But who's going to be the one that doesn't do that? Who's going to be the one that finds another win or two? I think Aonishiki has the most potential for it. I know Wakamoto Haru and Abi especially have proven time and time and time again that they can hang with all of those guys in the Sanyaku and get those extra wins, and they absolutely might do it. But it's looking bad for Abi especially. Like his matchups are terrible. Waka might be able to do it, but you know what? If everybody seems the same level of bleh, why not go with the exciting young guy who might do something special?
You know, I'm kind of glad that you feel that way about Onishiki. You know, one of my absolute favorite stat about him is that since his career began, he has not had a single Basho where he has finished less than 5 wins above 500.
Yeah.
Like he's and like not even Onosato can say that, and he'll never be able to say that because I think he had that 4-3 to start his career. Like, you know,
Second
that's
Basho. Second Basho.
yeah, second Basho. It's
Well, and he had nine and sixes and stuff.
yeah,
Like,
he had a bunch
yeah.
of 9 and 6s. Like this is Onishiki's, I think his 10th career Basho or so. And like, you know, not only has anybody figured out how to beat him enough to, you know, stop him from getting nonstop promotions, but they haven't figured out a way to stop him from, you know, finishing with 5 more wins than losses. So it is he's an intriguing guy. You know, I wonder if this is his ceiling, and I don't know if I'm willing to risk my Kachi Clash on this not being his ceiling. That's the only reason that I'm going with Hakuoho, who I also think, you know, if Hakuoho is healthy, like that's another guy that has sort of proven that he can, you know, go toe to toe with some of the other guys. He didn't last Basho, but I mean, in the past he has. So we can move on to Maegashira 6 through 10. Gotta be honest, it's not a very exciting list, like not a whole lot of guys. I mean, other than Ura, of course, who we all picked. But just to, you know, double check that we're all on the same page, of course. Let's say who we picked from Maegashira 6 through 10 on three. One, two, three. Takeru.
Takerufuji.
Fuji.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we might all say it differently, but it's the same guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. I mean, he's just like we know what Takerufuji is capable of. Like we know that he is capable of going up against, you know, these high guys, and we know that he is capable of utterly destroying all of these guys that are in and around Maegashira 6 through 10. You know, like it wouldn't be a shock if he goes like 8-1 or 9-0 against these guys if he had to face all of them. The real challenge for Takerufuji is going to be, you know, will he adjust to, you know, inevitably having to go up against, you know, the Sanyaku or the Maegashira 1 through 3. And last, you know, last Basho, the answer was a definitive no. He is not ready for those guys. But for everyone else, like, he's not only ready, like, he's arguably better than some of the guys above him against these guys. How do you two feel about Takerufuji this Basho?
You
Spiffy?
can go first.
Well, I think that Takerufuji, we're this close to feeling like he's already hit his ceiling, and to the point we made earlier about, you know, the one Yusho being maybe his only Yusho, heaven forbid. But I still think there is the possibility that it's a slow recovery from his injury, that he's adapting, that he's one of those guys that is just learning from every loss and prepared to change his game for it. So I think that time will tell. He's obviously had some serious setbacks, but you know, it's not over. This was his first like serious losing record, but he might come back all the better for it. Who knows? Also, it's possible that he'll be one of those guys, kind of like Wakamoto Haru and Abi, you know, kind of in and around Sanyaku all the time. That wouldn't be the worst fate, maybe if he's not a future Ozeki or anything like that. I think the jury is still out on Takerufuji, and I think we're going to learn a lot about where his ceiling really is from this tournament.
Head to head, he's even against Hiraumi, but frankly, he's got to be the favorite there. He should smash Meisei, Gonoyama, Endo, Sadanaumi, Ichiyamamoto, Chiyoshoma, Ura. He should win every single one of those matches. He may not, but he should. And
Fair.
Tobizaru, he's never fought, but he should win that too. So that's 9 matches. And if he goes less than 7-2, I'm going to be stunned. And those are his essentially guaranteed matchups.
Right.
So where does he fall apart here? He should be able to do that before he runs into any trouble at all. And personally, the best prediction I have for anybody else in this group is Ura around 9 wins. I mean, Takeru should get that with hardly breaking a sweat.
Yeah, I mean that kind of feels like one of those moments where it might just be like Ura sort of bouncing off. Like we love to glaze Ura, but like I would kind of be stunned if he's able to do to Takerufuji what he was able to do to Takayasu. You know, that just doesn't seem that's not the kind of style that Takerufuji is maybe even capable of losing by. But I see where you're coming from. And as for like Atamifuji, and really he's not going to fight Atamifuji. Roga is kind of a coin flip when it comes to good matchups. I'm not really expecting a whole lot. So, yeah,
Yeah.
Takerufuji seems to be the guy down here.
And Takerufuji doesn't have to fight Hakuoho either, who
Right,
is the
right.
kind of guy that could give him a problem. So that helps too.
And lastly, we have the Maegashira 11 through 17. Just for a quick recap, we have Takanosho, Tokihayate, Midori Fuji, Asakoryu, Juranumi, Shodai, Kusano, Fujinokawa, Koto Shouho, Hidanumi, Kayome Takayumi, Kotoeho, and Shishi. I suspect that there's going to be. Oh wait, no, I think we've all said we know
Definitely
exactly.
Kusano. It's
Yes,
definitely Kusano.
Definitely Kusano.
It's Kusano. Like he's won 27 of his last 30 matches. The only wrestler on the entire Bansuke who has a comparable record is Onosato, who I think is just with 26. I mean, granted, winning 27 matches in Juryo is not nearly the same as winning 27 matches from the Sanyaku, but they're still sumo wrestlers. Like this is a guy who knows how to win. He has had some of the best coaching in the sport. He hasn't had any injuries as far as I can tell, unlike a lot of the other guys in his stable who have, tried ascending the ranks. Like it really seems like the stage is set for him to not only get like either a 9 or 10 at like as like his floor, but to maybe even be challenging for, be like faced up against someone in the Sanyaku by like the middle of week 2. How do you guys feel about Kusano's chances of actually like challenging for the Yusho by tournament's end?
I think challenging for the Yusho really has a lot to do with the schedule of his wins and losses. But I think in terms of like what kind of record are we going to see looking back, I would be absolutely stunned if he had less than 11 wins. Or most likely, I think he's going to have 11 wins. Is the number I would safely bet on.
I mean, I already got into this where I was saying I think 10 is his floor. I think 9, if he gets absolutely shafted with the schedule and takes a surprising loss or two. 10 is the reasonable floor. 11, I would expect. I think a more interesting question in this bracket is, do you see anybody who can do a Sada no Umi or an Asakoryu from last time and even get to 10 besides this guy?
I mean, there is sometimes like that one guy that sort of surprises you. Like I was kind of curious for your sort of scouting report on on the artist formerly known as Waka Ikari and Koto Eho. Like have you seen anything from either of them that gives you any sort of confidence that they could give us a surprise 9 or 10?
Yes, but not this Basho.
Hmm.
Like, a lot of people are really high on Fujinokawa. A lot of people. And with good reason. Like, as small as he is, he's really improved quickly and he's young. So what I hope for him is that he doesn't get too beat up by fighting all these monsters before he can really hit his physical prime. That's what I hope for him. But Asakoryu was always capable of the 10 and 5 he had last time. It was just a question of when he was going to do it. I didn't expect him to do it then, but I figured he was going to do something like this at some point. I would have expected more of a 9 and 6, but whatever, that's close enough. But how many Bashos did he need to get there? I think that was his third in the division. Yeah, so he was Maegashira 17, dropped back to Juryo, came up to 16, then he was 17, and 17 is where he went 10 and 5. It's such a different game, even though what I said earlier about the bottom of Makuuchi being pretty similar to Juryo in terms of, general level of difficulty. That's true, but it's mostly true for the physically overwhelming guys. For these smaller dudes especially, the game is different. The game is legit different. Here's where you have even the guys who are fading and going to fall out of the division, they still are a lot bigger than you, and they know a lot more about how to stop you from pulling your tricks on them. Now, it may not work, but they know stuff. So a guy like him has to do what Asakoryu did and actually spend enough time in the division to figure out how to make his strengths work in this environment because it is a different environment. And even if he does reasonably well early, when you're at the bottom of the division, those matchups only get harder as the Basho goes on because you can only go up in rank in terms of your opponents. So he's probably going to struggle because he doesn't know what he's going to deal with until he's in there with it. But give him a Basho or two with it, and then we're probably going to see him start to come around and at least get winning records and start to slowly go up the ranks. This time, though, no. Kotoeho is just like less him. He's good, but I don't think he's going to hit the same heights, and I don't think we can expect the same things.
Mhm.
I must say, I completely forgot that Fujinokawa is Waka Ikari.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
people did that, like that Shikona change, like it came out of nowhere for like most people. We just kind of like wake up and like we see the Banzuke and we're like, huh, who's this guy and why haven't I heard of him before?
right.
But so, forgetting that that is a person that I very much am hyped for, I think I could see some good things from the now Fujinokawa, but I could also see that being one of the more disappointing, runs in Makuuchi division, especially when you have, there's a lot of competition down there. Also worth noting, Shodai is now at the lowest rank he has been in for a decade. In 10 years, he has not been this low to be at M13 now. That could mean that he's going to be against competition that's way worse than he's used to, and he could be torching people. Or obviously, it's the possibility, as you alluded to, Spiffy, that his career's clearly on the decline and he might continue dropping for a bit longer. So I'm not sure what to expect, but I think that possibility is at least open that Shodai could be against competition that he cruises through a bit and has a strong showing, maybe 9 wins, something like that.
Now I'm curious, do you think which is if you had to guess, does Shishi get a Kachikoshi or a Makikoshi from Maegashira 17?
If he's healthy, yeah, he should win. He's got Kusano's going to beat his ass, and everyone else is actually a pretty good matchup for him, so he should be fine. But we'll see. Like if he's not moving well, anything's possible. If he is, I think he's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, I feel kind of the same. Like it, I mean, honestly, someone like Mitakeumi might give him help problems even if he's healthy. But yeah, I kind of agree. Like if he's healthy, he should be able to get at least 8. But if he's not, then we could be looking at a bit of a. But yeah, so like that's it for Kachi Clash. Remember, if you are interested in joining our heya, please feel free to join kachiclash.com, create your account, and then just post your username either in the comments or send it to us in an email. We are happy to do it via email. All right. Well, we are nearly done. I guess it's just time to make our final definitive picks, which we will all certainly agree on and absolutely get right and be proven right. Sumo Spiffy, we will let you take it away. Who do you have winning the July Basho?
Onosato. Like it's I think this one is a little different from a lot of the Bashos we're gonna look at going forward in that as much as I am not taking his potential distraction or excess drinking into consideration when deciding who to pick for Kachi Clash, I think that is a real thing and it may reduce the odds of him winning a little bit. I think there is how to describe this right. I think a real, very strong favorite is somebody you think has at least a 50% chance of winning. And I wouldn't put him at this level this time, but he's got a better chance of winning than anybody else. I'd put him 35 to 40, Hoshoryu around maybe 30. And then everybody else, there's like a 30% chance that some random dude does something completely. Or let's give Wakataka Kage 15. the other Sekiwake 5, and then some random dude from Maegashira, the last 5 or 10 or whatever's left.
Fair enough. I think I'm going to go with. I mean, even though I picked Hoshoryu for Kachi Clash, like if I'm truly being honest about like momentum and everything, I do still think that Onosato can pull out the Yusho. Like he can, like we've had, like his own master, Kusano Sato, won his first Yusho as a Yokozuna. So clearly I'm kind of overstating, how much impact the Yokozuna hangover is, and so did Takerufuji. Like that's two of our of our previous three Yokozuna that won their Yokozuna debut Yusho. I'm okay with with agreeing with you that Onosato is going to win this one and win his third straight.
So are you going to change your Kachi Clash pick then?
Maybe we'll see. We'll see.
I as boring as it is, I certainly believe that Onosato is the most likely to win the tournament. But, if I'm just trying to be fun and give my answer for the sake of saying something different, I feel something coming from Kirishima this tournament. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like we're starting to maybe see bits again of the Kirishima from 2023 who looked like he was on a Yokozuna run and going to be just unstoppable. So if there, and obviously Wakataka Kage's got some really amazing skill and he could easily pull it off. Kusano, I think, is a real possibility just because of, the run he's going to have and if things work out his way. But if I'm being honest with myself, who do I think is going to win it? I think Onosato too. As boring as that is. We'll see.
Kirishima has never won more than 9 in July, which
Forget it
is
then.
But there's air conditioning in the arena now, which
Oh yeah,
obviously
you know
has
what?
2
Wait,
wins.
hang on a second. That might change the whole equation now that the Nagoya Arena has air conditioning. But we'll see. Like I'm hoping that this is a tournament that like somebody can at least challenge one of our two Yokozuna. It sure would be nice if we have like we don't have our championship sort of decided by day 13 or 14. All right, well, that is going to do it for this week's this week's long edition of the New to Sumo podcast. We once again want to thank Sumo Spiffy for being our special guest on today's show. Thank you so much for being here, Sumo Spiffy.
Dude, this was fun, man.
Anything you want to plug before we let you go?
I mean, the only thing I have to plug is you have on screen is my channel. And also, if you are into fantasy games, sumospiffy.com/fantasy. I have a ton of fantasy games linked there. I don't run any of them, but there are links to a bunch. You can go there, check them out. There's Kachi Clash and a bunch of other stuff, Stable Masters, all kinds of things.
Love it. Well, thanks so much for joining us. It's been really so much fun talking to you for this extended episode. We'd love to stay in touch, and best of luck to all of us with our Kachi Clash and all our other games.
Yeah, man, you want to do this again, just let me know.
Awesome. We'd love to. Thanks again. And everybody, enjoy the July tournaments. We'll be back soon.
A victory won. Join the ranks, let's start the show. New to sumo, here we go.